You're listening to a production of the National Media Archive. To learn more or volunteer, go to nationalmediaarchive.com.
Discord, a free communication app that exploded in growth within a mere 6 years, transforming from a nobody to a company worth over $7 billion. That's more than Skype, Pinterest, Tumblr, and others. And here's the kicker. It doesn't have ads, it doesn't sell user data, and it's totally free to use. Yet, Discord is one of the highest valued social media companies in the world. Microsoft even offered $12 billion to acquire it, but the founders turned it down. Why? They understood something others didn't. Discord's value will keep growing, reaching far beyond that offer. But how? It's not immediately obvious. After all, Discord's revenue model is more subtle than most tech giants. In the past 6 years, Discord has accumulated over 350 million users. That's an insane growth rate. We're talking about more than just a massive user base. It's a leverage play that extends well beyond its user base itself. This became apparent in January 2021, when the world saw firsthand just how powerful Discord could be. On January 6th, a protest against the 2020 U.S. presidential election results turned into a violent insurrection. Discord was one of the main platforms used to organize the events leading up to that day. That's right. One of the apps that many people rely on for communication played a role in the chaos that unfolded. This wasn't about directly causing harm, but the underlying message was clear. Discord holds immense power when it comes to shaping events. While the company wasn't responsible for the violence itself, this event marked a turning point, revealing the true power that Discord's platform could wield. The insurrection may have been a symptom, but the real issue was how Discord's infrastructure was being used for something far darker. And yet, it was just the beginning of the story. Discord's growth has been steady but exponential, and the way it makes money isn't so much about the product itself, but about what it can offer investors. But let's rewind a bit to understand where Discord came from and how its controversial origins set the stage for its current success. In 2008, Jason Citron, a young gamer, launched a company called OpenFaint. The idea was to create a social network for mobile games, integrating features like leaderboards and achievements into the games themselves. At the time, it seemed like a great idea, and notable games like Ninja and Jetpack Joyride were among the first to incorporate OpenFaint. But by 2011, OpenFaint was sold to a Japanese company, Gree, for $104 million. Citron was 26 years old and a millionaire, but it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows. Just before the sale, OpenFaint faced a class action lawsuit over mishandling user data. The company had been accused of storing and selling personal information like GPS locations, browsing history, and even social media profiles. They were also allegedly accessing users' unique device identifiers without their knowledge. Citron was involved, though he's always denied any wrongdoing. Miraculously, the lawsuit was dropped, and Citron went on to form Discord in 2015. He wanted to create something revolutionary, an app for gamers to communicate, but without the mistakes of his past. Discord's early days were tough, though. The voice quality was terrible, and connections between users were hit or miss. But Citron and his team were relentless. They fixed the issues and made improvements, leading to a surge in users. Twitch streamers helped spread the word, and by the end of 2015, Discord had 3 million users. The following year, that number grew to 25 million, and by 2020, Discord was sitting at 150 million active monthly users. Investors took notice, but not because of the revenue. Discord hadn't started to monetize its platform yet. Discord made its first big attempt to monetize with Discord Nitro, a subscription model that started at $4.99 a month. It offered features like custom emojis, higher quality video sharing, and other upgrades. In 2018, it added server boosts and larger file uploads. By July 2020, Discord reportedly generated $120 million from subscriptions. But here's the problem. How does a company valued at billions of dollars generate only $120 million? How can it be worth so much and yet remain unprofitable? That's where things start to get tricky. Discord's real revenue stream didn't come from subscriptions. It came from investments. The company has been quietly growing, and through smart moves, it's positioned itself to dominate the messaging industry. With 150 million active users, Discord now has 3 times the active user base of Reddit. Its user base keeps growing, and with it, Discord's value. As more users flock to Discord, more investors get on board, increasing the company's value even further. This investment-backed growth is what has fueled Discord's rise, and as the company continues to expand, it could soon have 500 million active users in a few years. The question now becomes, what's the endgame for Discord? The answer is not as simple as it seems. Discord, like many other big tech companies, has a unique business model. Instead of turning a profit, it focuses on growing its user base and increasing its value. This is a familiar tactic in Silicon Valley. Once the company reaches a certain level of scale, it becomes a prime target for acquisition. This is exactly what happened in 2021 when Microsoft offered $12 billion for Discord. Jason Citron turned down the offer, though. At the time, Discord was still expanding, and Citron knew that its value was going to keep climbing. Instead of cashing out, he chose to keep pushing forward. Part of Discord's value comes from the investments it's received. By 2020, it had raised $500 million in funding, with investors like Benchmark, Greylock Partners, Index Ventures, and Spark Capital, the parent company behind Snapchat. But one investor stands out more than the rest: Tencent. In 2021, Tencent, the Chinese tech giant, acquired a 38% stake in Discord. And that's where things get really concerning. Tencent is no ordinary investor. It's not just a Chinese tech company. It's deeply connected to the Chinese government. Tencent owns massive stakes in companies like Riot Games, and it has been a major force in China's expansion into global markets. It owns WeChat, one of the biggest social networks in China, with over 1 billion users. But what's important to understand is that Tencent isn't just a tech company. It's essentially a commercial arm of the Chinese Communist Party. And that's where things get even darker. Tencent's control over Discord isn't just about making money. It's about gathering data. China has been very open about its ambitions to collect data from around the world, and Tencent has been one of the key players in this effort. As Discord grows, the Chinese government gains access to millions of users' data. And when you factor in Tencent's ownership, the implications become much more serious. Discord is often touted as a platform that protects users' privacy. They claim they don't sell data to third parties, but the reality is more complicated. Discord shares user information with vendors and advertising platforms. It may also share data with related companies, including subsidiaries and other companies under common ownership. When you dig deeper into Discord's privacy policy, it becomes clear that there's more to the story, and this is just the beginning. Discord's data practices are worrisome, especially when you consider Tencent's involvement. Tencent is legally required to send all data back to the Chinese government. And with Discord's massive user base, this data is incredibly valuable. The Chinese government now has access to everything Discord collects, from messages to location data to social media activity. It's all stored on Discord servers, even after users delete their accounts. And that's not all. Discord doesn't have end-to-end encryption like other messaging apps. This means that private messages aren't actually private, they're stored and accessible. Now, you might be wondering why this matters. It's not just about your data being stored, it's about who controls it. Tencent, with its close ties to the Chinese government, is building a global surveillance network, and Discord is one of its key pieces. But let's take a step back. What does this all mean for the future? With Discord growing at an explosive rate, it's only a matter of time before it rivals WhatsApp as a global messaging platform. And as it grows, so does Tencent's control over the data that Discord collects. Discord's true value isn't in its subscriptions or user base. It's in the data that it collects and how that data can be used. The data Discord collects from its users is monumental. It's not just the basics, like your name and email address, but far more intimate details: your location, browsing history, the games you play, even your social media activity. This data paints a full picture of who you are. And with this information, companies like Tencent gain a significant advantage in predicting behavior, influencing trends, and even manipulating entire populations. As Discord continues to expand, this data pool becomes more valuable, and it is increasingly difficult to ignore the potential implications for privacy and security. What's even more troubling is the encryption, or lack thereof. Unlike competitors such as WhatsApp or Facebook Messenger, Discord doesn't offer end-to-end encryption. This means that your private messages, conversations, and interactions aren't entirely secure. While Discord may claim to safeguard user privacy, the reality is that private data can be accessed more easily than you might think. If a hacker were to breach Discord's security, all that information, from usernames to locations to messages, would be exposed, potentially compromising hundreds of millions of users. The lack of end-to-end encryption and the centralized nature of Discord's data storage create a perfect storm for a massive data breach. Given the platform's vast scale and Tencent's involvement, this becomes even more concerning. Discord's data isn't just sitting on any random server. It's controlled by a company with ties to the Chinese Communist Party, and this could raise serious security issues in the future. If a breach were to happen, it could be catastrophic for the users who trusted Discord with their personal information. What's even more unsettling is how Discord handles account deletions. You might think that when you delete your account, your data is erased too. But that's far from the case. Discord doesn't fully delete your information when you attempt to remove your account. Instead, it keeps everything stored within its servers. Your data remains accessible even after you've supposedly wiped it from the platform. This means that even if you decide to part ways with Discord, your data might still be accessible to anyone with the proper permissions, which, considering Tencent's control, raises significant concerns about who can access it and for what purpose. To understand the true scope of this issue, it's essential to look at Tencent's broader influence. Tencent's reach extends far beyond Discord. It owns stakes in numerous other tech giants, including Riot Games, which is behind the hugely popular League of Legends. And it has invested in gaming companies, social platforms, and messaging services across the globe. What Tencent is really building is a vast surveillance infrastructure, using these companies and platforms to gather information about people all over the world. With Discord in its portfolio, Tencent now has access to one of the most valuable pools of data in the tech world: the conversations, activities, and preferences of hundreds of millions of users. And then there's the political context. The Chinese government is known for its aggressive surveillance tactics and control over digital spaces. In China, companies like Tencent operate under the scrutiny of the Chinese Communist Party, which can dictate how user data is handled. The Chinese government has made it clear that any company operating within its borders must comply with its strict data control laws. This is particularly alarming because Tencent is no ordinary company. It's essentially an extension of the Chinese government's influence. In fact, Tencent is legally obligated to share all collected data with the Chinese government. This means that as Discord collects more data from its users, a significant portion of that information could be shared with the Chinese government, without most people even knowing. This becomes even more worrisome when you consider the geopolitical implications. Over the past few years, China has increasingly used its control over data and technology as a tool to expand its global influence. The Chinese government has made no secret of its ambitions to surpass the United States as the world's dominant superpower. As part of its 2049 plan, which marks the centenary of the Chinese Communist Party's founding, China is working to become a global leader in technology, economics, and military power. This plan hinges on massive data collection efforts, using big data and artificial intelligence to shape global affairs. Tencent, through its investments and control of platforms like Discord, is positioning itself as a key player in this strategy. The US has already seen the impact of China's growing influence in the tech world. Companies like TikTok, WeChat, and Huawei have raised alarm bells due to their ties to the Chinese government. These companies are accused of using data to spy on foreign users and influence global events. In fact, TikTok has been banned in several countries over concerns about the data it collects. Yet, Discord continues to grow, with Tencent pulling the strings behind the scenes. It's clear that China sees massive value in controlling data from platforms like Discord, as it allows them to profile populations, predict trends, and potentially sway political outcomes. This type of data collection isn't limited to just one region. Tencent's global network allows it to gather data from millions of users across continents. And with this data, Tencent can begin to manipulate public opinion, influence purchasing behaviors, and even target specific individuals with tailored propaganda. It's a terrifying thought, but it's one that's backed by evidence of China's increasing use of big data for political leverage. So, what does all of this mean for Discord users? Simply put, the more Discord grows, the more powerful Tencent becomes. And as Tencent's control over Discord increases, so too does the potential for the Chinese government to gain access to vast amounts of personal data. This isn't a conspiracy, it's a strategy that's already in play. Discord's incredible growth is a sign of the power Tencent now holds, not just in the gaming industry, but in shaping global communications and information flow. And as Discord's reach expands, so does Tencent's ability to collect data from people around the world, strengthening China's global influence. What's at stake here isn't just the security of Discord's users, but the larger implications for global privacy, freedom, and digital autonomy. As Discord scales and competes with other messaging giants like WhatsApp, it's important to understand the true nature of its business model and its connections to Tencent. Discord may seem like a simple app for gamers, but in reality, it's a massive data collection tool that could have far-reaching consequences for privacy and security. As Discord grows into one of the most significant messaging platforms, it's clear that its business model isn't about traditional advertising or sales. Instead, Discord's value comes from its massive, data-rich user base, and the company's connections to investors like Tencent make this even more concerning. Tencent's global reach is unprecedented, and as one of China's biggest tech giants, its influence is already being felt in countries around the world. Through its investment in Discord, Tencent is not only gaining access to an app that is increasingly rivaling WhatsApp in scale, but it's also securing an enormous trove of personal data from users across the globe. This data collection strategy allows Tencent to profile people on an unprecedented level. It's not just about tracking users' locations or social media activity. Tencent and, by extension, the Chinese government, have access to potentially everything about you. This could include your gaming habits, your conversations, your interactions with others, and even your preferences. In a world where information is power, having access to this level of detail about millions of people is an immense advantage. It allows Tencent to shape narratives, manipulate opinions, and in some cases, even influence political events. What makes this especially worrying is that Discord, unlike most other apps, doesn't have a history of monetizing its platform in the traditional way. Instead of focusing on revenue through advertising or selling products, Discord has relied on the growth of its user base and the investment money flowing in. This has allowed the platform to grow without having to focus on profit, which might seem like a good thing on the surface, but when you dig deeper, it reveals a more concerning truth. The real product is the data it collects. In the tech industry, there's a saying, if you're not paying for the product, you are the product. In the case of Discord, this statement couldn't be more accurate. Users flock to the platform because it provides real value. It's easy to use, has robust communication features, and offers an excellent experience for gamers and communities. But this value isn't free. The price users pay is their personal data, which Discord is accumulating at an astonishing rate. And when you factor in Tencent's involvement, the stakes get even higher. Tencent's data practices are troubling enough on their own, but when combined with Discord's sheer scale, the picture becomes even more ominous. Discord may claim that it doesn't sell your personal information to third parties, but the reality is that it shares a wealth of data with vendors, advertising platforms, and related companies. It's not just the data that users willingly provide, but the information that can be extracted from their interactions with the app. Every message, every server join, every click is a data point that can be used to build a comprehensive profile of each individual. This extensive data collection doesn't just end with the basic user information. Discord tracks everything. It knows what games you play, when you play them, what servers you join, and even the conversations you have. Unlike Facebook or Instagram, which have some level of encryption to protect your messages, Discord's communication isn't as secure. In fact, it doesn't offer end-to-end encryption at all. This means that your private messages aren't as private as you might think. While Discord claims to protect user privacy, the lack of encryption leaves messages vulnerable to interception. This lack of security has been a point of concern for many experts. Without end-to-end encryption, there's nothing stopping hackers from breaching Discord servers and accessing sensitive information. And considering the platform's scale, with millions of active users, the potential for a catastrophic data breach is massive. Imagine the fallout if hackers gained access to Discord servers, stealing everything from personal messages to gaming activity and social interactions. This is the reality of an app that tracks everything you do without offering the protections that users might expect from a communication platform. But the data vulnerabilities aren't the only concern. Tencent's involvement in Discord takes things to a whole new level. As a company that's controlled by the Chinese Communist Party, Tencent has direct access to data that could be used for political and economic gain. The Chinese government is notorious for using data collection as a tool for surveillance and control. Tencent, by law, must share user data with the government. So when you combine the sheer scale of Discord's user base with Tencent's legal obligations to provide data to the Chinese government, it's clear that the stakes go far beyond simple privacy concerns. The data harvested from Discord could be used by the Chinese government to gain leverage over foreign populations, influence global political events, or even manipulate economic trends. This type of data harvesting isn't just limited to Discord, though. Tencent has its hands in many other major tech companies. It owns stakes in Riot Games, which is responsible for League of Legends, and has investments in companies like Reddit, Snapchat, and even some of the largest gaming companies in the world. By controlling so many high-value assets, Tencent has positioned itself as one of the most powerful players in the global tech landscape. And with Discord now in its portfolio, Tencent has access to even more data, further expanding its global influence. The consequences of this kind of data control are far-reaching. It's not just about the privacy of individuals, although that is a serious concern. It's about the power that comes with controlling so much information. In an era where data is the new oil, companies like Tencent are sitting on a goldmine. And as Discord continues to grow, so does the potential for Tencent to wield even more power. By collecting data on hundreds of millions of users, Tencent can create detailed profiles that can be used to influence decisions, behavior, and opinions on a global scale. At the same time, Discord's reliance on investment dollars to fund its growth means that it's in the hands of its investors. The company's primary focus has always been on increasing its value and expanding its user base, which has led to a situation where data collection has become the primary revenue stream. While Discord does offer a subscription model, it's a drop in the bucket compared to the value of the data that the platform is generating. And with Tencent's increasing influence, it's clear that Discord's true value isn't just in its communication features. It's in the vast trove of data that it controls. As Discord continues to expand and become a dominant player in the messaging space, it's essential to keep an eye on its relationship with Tencent. While the platform may offer users an excellent experience, the underlying business model is deeply rooted in data collection and investment-backed growth. With Tencent controlling a significant portion of Discord's ownership, the implications for privacy, security, and global data control are enormous. And this isn't just a theoretical concern. It's a very real issue that could have far-reaching consequences for the future of digital privacy and security. The more data Tencent collects through platforms like Discord, the more power it gains. And as Discord's influence grows, so does China's ability to shape the global digital landscape. As users, it's important to understand what's at stake when using platforms like Discord, because the price you're paying for free communication might be much higher than you realize. As Discord continues its massive growth trajectory, the question of its true value becomes clearer. It's not just the user base or the features that make Discord so powerful. It's the data. Data is the lifeblood of Silicon Valley, and Discord's vast user pool provides the kind of detailed, personalized insights that are crucial for shaping the future of digital communication. And with Tencent now holding a significant stake in Discord, the implications of this data collection become even more troubling. Tencent's control over Discord is about more than just boosting the company's value. It's about harnessing a massive amount of personal information that can be used in ways that most users probably don't realize. While Discord markets itself as a platform for free communication, there's a catch. The data it collects is used to fuel its growth, to attract investors, and to provide value to those investors. In other words, the true currency of Discord is the data that flows through it, and Tencent stands to gain immensely from this. Discord tracks nearly everything. Every message you send, every server you join, every game you play, and even every click you make on the platform is logged and analyzed. The scope of this data is staggering. Unlike more traditional social media platforms, Discord isn't just capturing your posts or photos, it's capturing a comprehensive record of your online behavior. This level of surveillance is what makes Discord so valuable to investors, but it also raises serious concerns about privacy and security. While Discord has repeatedly claimed that it values user privacy and isn't selling personal data to third parties, the reality is more complicated. As we saw earlier, the platform shares data with vendors and advertising platforms. And although Discord's privacy policy might say it doesn't sell data, it shares it with a number of companies involved in marketing and analytics, which means your personal information is still being used for commercial purposes. This is where things get murky. But the biggest concern is what happens to this data once it's in the hands of Tencent. Tencent isn't just any investor. It's a company with deep ties to the Chinese government. The Chinese government has a well-documented history of using data to exert control over its population and to shape global events. Tencent, as a key player in China's tech ecosystem, is subject to Chinese laws that require companies to share data with the government. This means that any data collected by Discord could eventually make its way to the Chinese Communist Party, which could use it to monitor foreign citizens, track political movements, or even influence public opinion. This might sound like a stretch, but the reality is that we're already seeing the Chinese government leverage data in ways that go far beyond traditional surveillance. By investing in platforms like Discord, Tencent is gaining access to a global network of personal data that could be used for geopolitical influence. If the Chinese government is able to access and analyze the data flowing through Discord, it could use that information to better understand the attitudes, behaviors, and political leanings of people around the world. And that's not just a privacy issue, it's a national security issue. Consider how China has used its control over domestic platforms to shape narratives within its borders. Platforms like WeChat and Weibo are heavily censored, with the Chinese government using them as tools to suppress dissent and monitor its citizens. Now, with Tencent having control over a massive global platform like Discord, the risk of extending these same tactics beyond China becomes much more real. It's not just about controlling what happens in China. It's about using the vast amounts of data from global platforms to further the Chinese government's influence over the rest of the world. The issue isn't just with the potential for misuse of this data. It's also with how much access Tencent and the Chinese government already have. In a time when digital privacy is increasingly under scrutiny, platforms like Discord are in a unique position to gather huge amounts of personal data. And while Discord may not be as blatantly invasive as some other platforms, its connection to Tencent gives the Chinese government indirect access to this information. This isn't just about privacy. It's about the broader implications for global data control. So what does this mean for the average Discord user? It means that while the platform may feel like a safe space for gaming and communication, it's important to recognize that your data is being monitored, stored, and potentially shared with entities that have significant political agendas. Discord's apparent commitment to privacy is undermined by its involvement with Tencent, a company that operates under the auspices of the Chinese Communist Party. And as Discord grows, so does the power of Tencent and, by extension, the Chinese government. The role of Tencent in Discord's future also raises the question of who really controls the platform. Is it Jason Citron, the founder who built Discord from the ground up? Or is it Tencent, with its massive investment and ties to the Chinese government, that holds the real power? The answer isn't entirely clear, but one thing is certain. Tencent's influence on Discord is growing, and it's something that users need to be aware of. What's even more concerning is the potential for this data to be used in ways that we can't even foresee. As more data is collected and analyzed, the ability for powerful entities like Tencent to manipulate public opinion and control narratives becomes more pronounced. The Chinese government has long made it clear that it intends to use data to further its goals on the global stage. By investing in companies like Discord, Tencent is positioning itself to become an even greater player in this effort. Now, consider this. Discord isn't just another messaging app. It's one of the most widely used communication platforms for a generation that's grown up online. And the data it holds, from messages to gaming habits to personal information, is an invaluable resource. Tencent has invested heavily in Discord, and with that investment comes an opportunity to shape the future of digital communication. This is why it's so critical to understand the underlying business model of platforms like Discord, because the true cost of using them may not be immediately obvious. Discord has created a platform that provides immense value to its users, but that value comes at a price. The data you provide while using Discord is incredibly valuable, and it's being used to fuel the growth of the company. As long as Tencent holds such a large stake in Discord, it's important to remember that the true value of the app is not just in its user experience. It's in the vast troves of data that flow through it. And that data is being monitored, analyzed, and potentially used for much bigger purposes than you might think. Discord's growth and its relationship with Tencent are just the beginning of a much larger conversation about privacy, security, and data control in the digital age. As more tech companies expand their reach and collect ever-increasing amounts of data, we must ask ourselves, who truly controls our data, and how is it being used? The answer may not be as simple as it seems. At this point, it's important to pause and consider how far-reaching the implications of Discord's growth and its ties to Tencent really are. We've established that Discord's primary value is in its user data, and that Tencent's influence within the company raises significant concerns about privacy, security, and global power dynamics. But there's another layer to this puzzle: the potential for Discord to shape global communication itself. Discord isn't just a platform for gamers. It has evolved into a hub for all types of online communities, including hobbyist groups, educators, tech enthusiasts, and even political movements. As its user base expands, Discord is becoming an essential tool for communication across the globe. And while its interface is sleek and its features are intuitive, what's hidden behind the curtain is the company's dependency on massive data collection. This is something many users are unaware of, and it's something that will likely become more important as Discord continues to grow. One of the reasons Discord is so appealing is its focus on providing a service that adds value. It offers free voice and text communication, high-quality video, and a seamless integration with online games. For millions of users, Discord is an invaluable platform for maintaining connections and organizing communities. But for Tencent, the platform's true value is in the information it collects. Each user who joins Discord is contributing to an ever-growing dataset that is highly valuable for investors, not just for the money it generates, but for the power it gives them in shaping the future. Consider what happens when Tencent uses the information from Discord in conjunction with its other holdings. Tencent already owns substantial stakes in a number of influential tech companies, including Riot Games, Epic Games, which owns Fortnite, and social media platforms like Reddit and Snapchat. By controlling this network of platforms, Tencent is in a unique position to gather data from across the globe, providing it with a granular view of public sentiment, consumer behavior, and political tendencies. This data isn't just used for selling products or advertising. It can be used to influence public opinion on a massive scale. Imagine being able to track global trends in real time, knowing which topics are gaining traction, which political movements are growing, and which regions are becoming more politically volatile. With access to this data, Tencent, under the direction of the Chinese government, could strategically position itself to manipulate outcomes across borders. And this isn't some far-off possibility. It's already happening. Take the example of WeChat, one of China's largest social networks. While WeChat serves as a communication platform, it also operates as a surveillance tool. In China, the government uses WeChat to monitor citizens, track conversations, and even control what is said on the platform. The Chinese government is able to censor information, block politically sensitive topics, and even track individuals in real time. And Tencent, which controls WeChat, is legally bound to comply with Chinese government's directives. This type of influence is incredibly powerful, and it's becoming increasingly evident that Tencent is trying to replicate this model on a global scale, especially with platforms like Discord. What makes this even more concerning is the way these platforms are positioned as free services. Users are drawn in by the promise of free communication and the value they get from the platform. But that value comes at the cost of their personal information. The platform may not charge you upfront, but your data is the currency. This is the fundamental issue with the business model that Discord operates under. By collecting an enormous amount of data and providing a platform that allows communities to thrive, Discord becomes a magnet for not just users, but investors who see the potential for long-term value in that data. Tencent's ability to leverage this data is made even easier by the lack of encryption on Discord. Unlike apps like WhatsApp or Signal, which offer end-to-end encryption to ensure that your messages are secure from prying eyes, Discord does not provide the same level of protection. This opens up the platform to a greater risk of data breaches and exploitation. It's one thing for a hacker to steal your data. It's another for a government-backed company like Tencent to have access to it, especially when that data could be used to further political or economic objectives. When you consider all of this in the context of China's broader geopolitical goals, the picture becomes even clearer. As part of China's 2049 plan, the country aims to become the global superpower by the 100-year anniversary of the Chinese Communist Party's founding. To achieve this, China is investing heavily in technology, data, and artificial intelligence. These tools will give the Chinese government an unprecedented level of control over the global digital landscape, and companies like Tencent are the vehicles for this strategy. By controlling major social media platforms, gaming companies, and communication tools like Discord, Tencent has the ability to build a comprehensive digital profile of people around the world. This could be used for various purposes, from influencing elections to shaping public opinion on critical global issues. It's not just about selling products or tracking users for advertising purposes. It's about having the ability to influence the direction of society itself. And then, there's the role of Tencent's influence within the Chinese Communist Party. Tencent is not just a company looking to make money. It's an extension of the state. This means that any data it collects could potentially be shared with the Chinese government. While many Western companies have their own issues with data privacy and surveillance, the level of control the Chinese government exerts over companies like Tencent is unparalleled. The Chinese government has made it clear that all companies operating within its borders must comply with its directives, including sharing data and providing access to the government whenever it's required. This kind of oversight gives the Chinese government a tremendous amount of leverage over global events. With access to platforms like Discord, China could gather data on people's thoughts and behaviors in ways that were never possible before. If China can track conversations, monitor trends, and profile users on a global scale, it can position itself to anticipate and respond to geopolitical shifts before anyone else. This gives them a significant advantage in shaping the future, both politically and economically. Now let's take a look at the most recent example of this kind of influence, the January 6th U.S. Capitol insurrection. While Discord was not directly responsible for the events that transpired, it played a crucial role in facilitating communication among the individuals involved. In fact, some of the most damaging messages and plans for the attack were shared on Discord servers. Over 2 million messages were reportedly exchanged on Discord about the planned assault, and many of the individuals involved bragged about their participation in the violence afterward. This wasn't just a spontaneous event. It was something that was organized and planned using communication platforms like Discord. While this is a specific example, it highlights a bigger concern. The data collected during these events, conversations, plans, and even the identities of those involved, was all stored on Discord's servers. And as we know, Discord's data is not completely private. In the hands of a company like Tencent, this information could easily be shared or analyzed by the Chinese government. This is a chilling thought, considering the scope of global events that could be influenced or even manipulated by this type of access. When you take all of these factors into account, it becomes clear that Discord's value isn't just in its features or its user base. It's in the data it collects, the way it can be used to track and influence people, and the role it plays in the broader political and economic agendas of Tencent and the Chinese government. Discord may be free for users, but the price they're paying in terms of their personal information could have far-reaching consequences. Now that we've explored the key elements of Discord's rise, its business model, and the troubling role Tencent plays, let's step back and consider the broader implications of this dynamic on the global tech landscape. Discord's model is part of a larger trend in Silicon Valley and the global tech world, where data is more valuable than the products or services themselves. It's not just about providing a platform for communication or entertainment. It's about owning the vast oceans of personal data that users generate and using that data as a key asset for investment and power. This is the heart of the issue. Discord's business model isn't about making money in the traditional sense, selling products or ads. Instead, it's about accumulating data on hundreds of millions of users and leveraging that data to grow the platform, secure investment, and fuel its expansion. The more users Discord has, the more data it collects, and the higher its value becomes. This is why Discord, despite not being profitable in a conventional sense, is still worth billions of dollars. The data it collects from users, and now, with Tencent's involvement, the potential to sell or share that data with one of the most powerful governments in the world is the real asset. Let's also look at the way data has become an integral part of global geopolitics. In an era where information is power, control over digital platforms like Discord gives Tencent an enormous advantage. By collecting data on users across the world, Tencent and, by extension, the Chinese Communist Party can use that information to build profiles of entire populations. This data can be used to understand public sentiment, monitor political movements, and even intervene in situations where there is instability or unrest. It's not just about tracking what people do. It's about understanding why they do it and how to leverage that information for economic or political gain. This kind of power is not just confined to China. The global nature of tech platforms like Discord means that data is being collected from people all over the world. While many companies focus on using this data for marketing and advertising, Tencent's interest goes far beyond that. The Chinese government's use of data for surveillance and social control is well documented, and the idea that data collected from platforms like Discord could be used for similar purposes is a frightening reality. It's a scenario where your personal data could be weaponized, not just for advertising, but for global geopolitical maneuvering. One of the most alarming aspects of this situation is the lack of transparency surrounding Discord's data practices. The platform claims to prioritize user privacy, but as we've seen, it doesn't operate with the level of encryption that many other messaging platforms do. Messages sent on Discord are not fully protected by end-to-end encryption, meaning that they can be accessed by anyone with the right permissions, whether that's Discord employees, third-party vendors, or, in the case of Tencent's involvement, the Chinese government. Discord's privacy policy also leaves room for sharing user data with various parties, including vendors and advertisers. While the platform might not be directly selling your personal information, the way it shares and utilizes this data is deeply concerning. Another key issue is how Discord handles account deletion. When users decide to delete their accounts, they're under the impression that their personal data is being erased. However, as we've discussed, Discord continues to store this data even after an account is deleted. For users, this raises significant concerns about the control they have over their own data. Even if you believe you've wiped your presence from Discord, your data might still be accessible to parties with the right access, including Tencent. This creates a situation where users think their data is gone, but it's actually sitting on servers waiting to be potentially exploited by those who control it. Now, let's address the geopolitical implications of all this. The Chinese government's ambitions to become the world's dominant superpower by 2049, the 100th anniversary of the founding of the People's Republic of China, are well documented. To achieve this, China has been using data as a critical tool. Whether it's through its control over domestic platforms like WeChat, its investments in Western tech companies, or its growing presence in global digital communications, China is positioning itself to control not just its own population, but populations around the world. By owning shares in major tech companies like Discord, Tencent is building a global digital surveillance infrastructure that extends far beyond the borders of China. This is where things get truly disturbing. The Chinese government, through its control of Tencent, now has access to vast amounts of data from people around the world. While companies like Facebook and Google have been criticized for their data practices, the scale of data collection by companies like Tencent is unprecedented. The Chinese government has laws that require companies like Tencent to share data with the state. This means that every message you send on Discord, every game you play, every server you join, and every interaction you have on the platform could potentially be accessed by the Chinese government. And that's not just a privacy concern. It's a matter of national security. What makes this even more dangerous is that the Chinese government has already shown a willingness to use data for political and social control. In China, WeChat is not just a messaging app. It's a tool for surveillance, censorship, and even social credit. The Chinese government tracks everything from what you say to where you go and uses that data to determine how you're allowed to participate in society. If Tencent's control over platforms like Discord continues to grow, there's a real risk that similar tactics could be applied on a global scale. This is a question of global power and control. As Tencent continues to invest in platforms like Discord, it gains more leverage over the digital landscape. The more data it collects, the more power it has to shape the future of communication, influence global events, and even sway political outcomes. The stakes are high, not just for Discord's users, but for the world at large. The real danger isn't just that Discord is collecting data. It's what's happening to that data once it's in the hands of Tencent. With Tencent's close ties to the Chinese government, it's clear that this data could be used for far more than marketing. The potential for manipulation, surveillance, and geopolitical influence is enormous. And as Discord grows, so does the power that Tencent and, by extension, the Chinese government have over the global digital landscape. It's a scary thought, but it's one we need to confront. As users, we need to ask ourselves, what are we willing to give up in exchange for the convenience of free communication? The price of using platforms like Discord may not always be immediately apparent, but it's a cost we can't afford to ignore. The world is changing, and the way we interact with technology is evolving. But as we continue to embrace these platforms, we must also remain aware of who controls them and what they're doing with our data. Discord, with its massive user base and data-rich platform, is a perfect example of how global tech giants are leveraging data for power. It's a reminder that when something is free, we're not just the users, we're the product. And in the case of Discord, that product is our personal information, and the cost of it could be higher than we realize.